What is going on, everybody? Appreciate you for tuning into another episode of On the Ball podcast. We're glad you could, come through. Give us a shot if you're new. Appreciate you for coming in. Got a lot we're going to talk about tonight, but before we get into that, first I'm going to say, Brett will be back probably in a couple of weeks. He's got work schedule and all this kind of stuff, so don't worry, he'll be back probably after the draft. But we do got Dylan in the building tonight. Dylan, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good, pretty good. Finally got settled into a new place so I can be on this podcast more consistently. And what better time than, the start of the NBA playoffs, the NFL draft, all good things to talk about, especially middle of in NFL free agency still too. Guys, it's kind of that weird point where we're just waiting for like whoever else to sign to just kind of sign or get traded. But overall, I mean, shoot, we're still getting good spring transfer portal news from college football. So it's just a good time, good off season right now. A lot of headlines. So getting to a good amount of things that are about to happen for our sports.
Right. I mean, we just had, WNBA draft last night. Like it is a good time. I mean, you did bring up the transfer portal stuff. I know I didn't know if we were going to talk about it or not, but the whole Tennessee thing, like, I know you're big with college football. Like, do you think that this could be the start of a potential problem across college football with guys like?
It's hard to really say because it wasn't just so much Nico Amaliava as it was it was like a bunch of Tennessee players. When it came out like, oh, he was going to sit, it was actually him and a couple other Tennessee players that were going to sit for better NIL deals. Who knows? I mean, obviously there's probably going to be benefits for it from some really good players, but as you can see, like reports are coming out that teams are waiting for him to drop his offer to finally, give him one because he doesn't really have that leverage as much as he does anymore. So, I mean, it could be good and bad. I mean, it's just like how the goods and bads of us not having an NIL was as well, too. Maybe it might have made the things more competitive or things like that, but, players weren't being valued as much or different things like that. So we see things like bowl opt-outs and different things like that, which still happen, of course, but it's very much less. So who knows? I mean, it's really hard to tell. I think, giving these college players money and letting them just kind of negotiate on their own will kind of hurts them. Maybe they might have it as like you make a requirement for your first 2 years, you stay at a program, different things like that. Who knows? It's really tough to say. But I mean, overall, I think a lot of people think everything's hurting college football because it's changed so much from the realignment to now allowing NIL. It is vastly a much different college football game than what it was played. So I think if anything that comes out of it, people are going to look as hurting it because it's not, benefiting the game.
I mean, yeah, because I do think when it does come to college football, they aren't necessarily the most receptive to change. But I do think that this situation with Tennessee and from everything, it wasn't necessarily the kid himself, but kind of the people around him and working through back channels to try to, sweeten deals and everything like that. I hope it's not something that, he can't recover from. Like, he still has eligibility. He'll obviously transfer somewhere else and, get the opportunity to, I guess, showcase his talent and hopefully spin that into an NFL career. But, for those who don't necessarily like NIL, like, this will become kind of their top reasoning for not liking it, because the last thing you need is kids getting 2 million but then wanting 4 or 5, and then you start getting like holdouts and all this kind of stuff, and it almost starts looking more and more like NFL like. Because when you talk to college football fans, a lot of them and NFL fans are kind of like separate in their reasons for loving the sport that they do. So hopefully this isn't like an every offseason type of thing where star players are now renegotiating or trying to.
I think Tennessee took the perfect approach, though. They didn't try to like go into a hunker down process, kind of hide it. They were like, "Hey, we don't agree with that. We don't like that. Like, you're just off the team, man." And I think I think them doing that rather than, a situation where they could like negotiate more or made it like try to hide it from the media or play this long, like cat and mouse type process really probably would have hurt it a lot more But the concept that they were like, no, we don't agree to those terms. We don't like that. We think you're kind of being like a little like, overboard with it. No, like we're just going to move on from you and start someone else. Or we're going to find another guy who will come here in the portal. Like, sorry. Like, go if you think you're really worth that much, go see if another team will give it out to you because we're not going to do that. And I respect that. I think that's going to put it in a lot of guys' perspectives when they start negotiating and the team hunkers down and they're like, hey, like, or if they even try to negotiate, like, hey, we can give you this much, or like, hey, we're kind of set where we're at, then like, maybe more players might be willing to accept it, thinking about what, all the changes and stuff could happen, especially if a team like Tennessee already kind of gave a blueprint on what you should do to fix that issue. Like, just be like, hey, we don't like that, man. We don't want to do that. We can't give you that. Like, move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree with that. Tennessee not dragging it out sends a message. Like, if you're going to sit here and try to disrupt the operation, we got plenty of guys on scholarship. We got plenty of guys that we can bring in through the transfer portal. Like, yeah, you're not bigger than the institution. Like, you can just move on. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see where he kind of lands, and I guess what it does for his career. But I guess to get into what we planned on talking about most of the night, we're going to talk about some NFL draft buzz, and then we'll get into the play-in / first round of the playoffs, which do start this weekend. So you get your full day of playoff action on Saturday, then Sunday with your game ones, and then obviously the schedule moves on from there. So looking at the NFL draft, all of a sudden, there's a team that seems to be making a lot of news in the New Orleans Saints. And whether or not they plan on moving up to get a quarterback, do they stay and kind of draft the quarterback that's available to them? Like, what do you make about the Saints rumors? Do you think that it's just smoke and nothing's really going to happen? Or are the Saints kind of in a desperate situation and need to move up?
So if they're going quarterback, I don't think they're as desperate as teams need to think. I think when you look at how the quarterback situation's been playing out and recent that's happened, Cam Ward's most likely going one. That's like 99% confirmed. I hate to say that and see something crazy happen on draft night. But Cam Ward won. Cool. And then it seems after that, like, people don't know. Shadur's stock has been like dropping, and I'm not sure, that's just kind of buzz or whatever, different things like that. Obviously, he's working out with New York if it's, I think, Thursday. So, he still could go as high as 3. I don't think New York will go quarterback. I think it's just part of the buzz. But if you really look out through the whole draft order until you get to New Orleans, it's like, okay, so Tennessee's going quarterback. The Browns, will they take Shadur? Maybe, but out of just recent news and different things like that, it just doesn't seem the way they're going. A lot of people think it might be a reach. Then you get down to, the 3, 4, 5 range. The Giants, they might, who knows? Jacksonville, who knows? And some of these other teams, when you get lower down, don't. But when you look at the Saints at number 9, would Shadur be a reach at 9? Not necessarily. He kind of had like a big draft hype prospect. It's literally for the first couple months. Before we got to April, it was Ward or Shadur. So the Saints taking him at 9 would be good. You got a good, might likely start or play behind Rattler because we don't know what's going on with that Derek Carr situation, if he will be able to play this season. So even if he's not, you get Shadur a good, opportunity to play. Now, it's not the greatest team, you're giving him, but you're giving him an okay offensive line, giving him Alvin Kamara, and some decent. It's hard to say even decent weapons, but you have a good set of players on there who have shown they can be good. You've got young players like Chris Olave, which is something I see that a lot of rookie quarterbacks don't even get someone like that to have. But it's just hard to tell. I think the Saints, they're kind of in a need everything mode, and so when you think about what they might do, they're that wild card spot. They could take a fluctuation of anything. They could trade up, even though I would not. I would stick at 9 because if Shadur goes higher, someone trades up for Shadur, cool. You didn't have to give up that assets. If you really want a quarterback, just draft Jackson Dart. Just take him at 9. If you really want a quarterback that bad, I don't think anyone will hate it too bad. Some people might look at it as a reach or try to trade back and gain some more assets. This is a team that needs a lot. You trade back with a team like who knows, like the Chargers or someone like that, a tight end needy team. Let's say if like a Tyler Warren's available at 9. Team might try to trade up, try to take someone for something like that, trade back, get more assets, and you still might be able to get your guy if Shedeur is gone. I think you just stay at your spot, you don't move, you need so much, and giving up something for, what would kind of be a lottery pick in this sense, where you don't know how good it's going to be. I mean, if you had a shoe in to get Cam Ward and you really liked him, maybe this would be a different story. But I wouldn't trade up to get anyone else that wouldn't be him in this draft. I mean, even still, I probably wouldn't trade up to go for Cam Ward just because a lot of these quarterbacks are kind of unproven in this sense. But overall, I think the Saints just have so much stuff they need to do. They're a very interesting team, but I would just stick and pick or trade back and trying to get whatever you can. This is a draft class where taking a quarterback might be smart, but it's not really the greatest class like what's been said. So, you're not really too pressured to do that. And if you just at number 9 take the best player available, I don't think anyone in your, organization or your fan base is really going to hate it. Because I think a lot of Saints fans also know that, like, we're probably not going to make much noise this year.
Right. What's going on, Key and Jory? And look, just like Key and Jory, feel free to drop a comment. We'd love to hear from you all. Give us your opinion on the Saints situation. Because like Dylan said, wasn't that long ago we heard about this shoulder injury from Derek Carr. And then it turned into his status for next season's like in jeopardy. We know they have Spencer Rattler, they have Jake Haener on the roster, they have Taysom Hill who can play quarterback. Don't they?
I thought Taysom Hill left in free agency, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, and he could.
I completely forgot.
I'm probably wrong. I don't know why I thought he left, and I was like, "Dang, end of an era." I'll look it up right now. I don't know why I thought he left.
He's still the Saints.
Is he okay?
But Hill's not a guy you want.
I heard him almost being cut, and so that made me be like, "Oh."
Yeah, I mean, Taysom Hill's not a guy that you want as your starting quarterback. Saints deserve this, to be honest.
No, they already tried it. Remember, they paid him all that money. That's why they're kind of still stuck on Taysom Hill. They paid him all that money in hopes he'd be a quarterback. They took 3 games.
And part of me thinks with the Saints cap situation still being a mess, like, are they going into this draft thinking that they can't necessarily, bring on a bunch of draft picks because of money reasons? So they're willing to kind of like push their chips to the table, move up to get the quarterback that they want, especially if their intel tells them that, let's say Sanders goes 3 to the Giants, and now they're waiting between 3 and 9 to see if some surprise team doesn't move ahead of them to get Dart, and now you're there on the board at 9, your quarterbacks are gone. Then what do you do? Like, do you trade back at that point, get more draft capital, hope maybe towards the top of the second round you can get like a Jalen Milroe or something like that? Like, is that the way that they play this out? Or if they view Sanders as much better than Dart, then don't you kind of have to go out and try to get Sanders?
I mean, but again, it's just like how good is Sanders or Dart as a prospect to be willing to, take a little bit of draft capital? Because it's like, it'd be different if we're talking about this is like a second round trade or a third round trade, but this is a first round and these are high picks going up from 9 to, like team at, maybe the Jets at 7 or maybe even Jacksonville at 5, even if the Patriots want to move back at 4, those are all high spots and you're going to have to give up some good picks. And the Saints just kind of need everything. They just need quality players. And what we've seen from these recent years, late guys are good. Late guys are really good, and they can be instant NFL caliber type of guys. Puka Nacua being one. Great receiver now. And you just have a lot of these late end guys. It's just like kind of mortgaging even next year's future. Maybe that's where you can kind of, set a little more chips in line. Is it really worth it? I just think if you're the Saints, you just really hold on because you don't really gain too much if you trade up and he's like what you kind of expect him to be, rather than if you drop and can get more assets to use with him. I think you have to be totally set that like one of these guys is the next franchise guy, because you can't afford you can't afford it. You can afford to stay at 9 and take a hit on one of these guys, but you can't afford to trade up with your current situation, your current cap, and then not be it. Because you don't have a situation for a franchise guy to come in and play right now. Even if it's a Patrick Mahomes-esque quality type of guy. The Chiefs had a good situation to give a little bit for Patrick Mahomes. They were able to build around them. They had more cap. They had draft pieces and different things like that, kind of help build around him. Saints don't really have that much. The Saints are going to have to use what they have on their roster and what they get on this draft to use for that quarterback. So, again, it's a lot trickier. I think just trading up means you're going to give him less stuff to use unless you trade next year's picks. But even still, if you want to make that dude your franchise, you need to get whatever you can for him now. This first year progression means so much, especially if you have to play him if Derek Carr's hurt.
Yeah, and because that's a good point. And you got a new coach coming in as well, in Kellen Moore. Look, maybe their decisions will be driven by Kellen Moore's view of this quarterback room. For all we know, Kellen Moore could be a big Spencer Rattler fan and feel like, get him some pieces around him and he's usable, and maybe dip into the quarterback class next year. Like, we don't know what Kellen Moore thinks. Or Kellen Moore may look at Spencer Rattler and go, he's cool if he's my backup, but I need Shedeur or Jackson Dart. So
I think if you're the Saints, though, personally, like, no matter what, who's at 9, you just hit it. You don't move up, you don't do anything. You just hit whoever will be at quarterback, even if it is Dart. Even if you're not a big fan of Dart and you loved Milroe, take Milroe at 9. I don't care. I don't think the Saints are in a position where anybody cares what they do as long as it's not a stupid pick. As long as they're not taking, no offense to these players because they're good, as long as they're not, taking Tyler Schroe at 9. Something like that. Something a way wild out of position. Not taking, Genty at 9. Good running back, but that's probably your least need as a running back, even with Kamara on the roster.
Right. Yeah, avoid what the Falcons did. Luxury picks.
Yep. And, you look at the Falcons, and it kind of paid off. To be fair, they should have known Kirk Cousins, who's 32, 33, coming off an Achilles tear. Maybe paying him that much money was the smartest thing to do. But their back office kind of also realized that. Maybe they had some, buyer's remorse. And you're like, ooh, we can kind of see the downside of this. Maybe let's get Penix to be safe because Cousins is bad or gets hurt. We need something to, go off this. And it worked for him. So, hey.
Look, when it comes to
also a good example too.
When it comes to the draft, every pick is a crapshoot anyway. There's no guarantees. Otherwise, nobody would miss on picks. John, once again, appreciate you tuning in. Vrabel's not trading picks because I do think the Patriots at 4 will be seen as kind of a spot for a team to possibly move up if they wanted to go after, Sanders if he's falling or whatever.
I don't think they would trade out of the top 10, but I'm not against them trading out. Because, if you look at it, let's say if the board goes Ward, I think how it probably goes is Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter is what I'm thinking in my head. I think that's a good solid top 3. At 4, Vrabel's a big defensive guy. You could get probably Will Campbell at 10, maybe. Maybe I think the worst you would want to trade out of is maybe 7. I think, the Jets being at 7, that's an offensive line needy team. But, I heard they're very big on Tyler Warren. So it's you have a good opportunity. So if the Saints want to trade up at 9, you pick before the Bears, who are probably going to take an offensive lineman if Genty's not there. And you kind of just pick and choose.
Ward, the linebacker from BYU, Sanders is top 3, Hunter at 4. John, do you mean linebacker from Penn State as in Carter? I'm assuming that's what he means, not BYU. But
I just don't see. I don't understand the Giants drafting Jameis for 2 years, Russell as 1, and then putting Shedeur at the 3rd seed. Just the 3rd string. A 3rd overall pick is just rough, man. Maybe if you could trade back in to get Shedeur, it's a different story. But I think sticking and picking at 3 and he'd be your 3rd string. I'm like, I want Abdul Carter is just right there, or Travis Hunter is just right there.
Mm-hmm.
Someone you could just play with these guys for now, and then pick next year.
Right, and I think that's the kind of the questions that are going to be asked in Cleveland and New York. Do we reach, quote, reach for a quarterback, or what if we're like really good on the defensive side of the ball, and we kind of piece things together offensively, and then just do this whole thing again next year? Like neither team is going to turn around their season by just taking a quarterback at 2 or 3, because they have so many other issues on their squad that it's a process. So kind of like what you were saying with the Saints at 9, don't necessarily give up draft capital to move up. Stay at 9, see where the board falls, trust your board, and then take who you have at the top of your board. I mean, I know Chris Olave has like the concussion issues and stuff. Like if you really love Ted McMillan, take Ted McMillan. Sure. I mean, the question might be who's going to throw it to him, but let's you can figure that out in the second round or the third round. Like,
and the good thing about this is it's a tier list for quarterbacks. It's like Cam Ward kind of just in his own tier, and then it's like, well, when you get to that second row, it's probably like what Sanders, Dart, and Rowe, and then after that third row, it's just like you got a fair list of names you get to throw in there that people are like kind of liking. You get someone like a Will Howard, Tyler Schroeder, like I mentioned earlier. Even some people are liking Dylan Gabriel. So different things like that. I mean, it's just this is not a just really good class to just be able to do that. Like you have to be told this guy's a franchise guy. And it's not just take one of the players that look like they're probably going to be franchise guys. I mean, I'm sorry, Abdul Carter is good.
Yeah, I mean, because I guess going back to John with Vrabel, and like you said, I think if Carter and Hunter are gone, I think Vrabel will entertain it. But I also think because of Will Campbell's kind of personality and everything, I think Vrabel would be fine taking Will Campbell at 4. Like he's a guy who kind of has like a mean streak to him. We saw when he was questioning his arm length, like he's got kind of a edge to him. And I think that's like Vrabel's thing this offseason. Like he's just wanting to transform kind of the mindset and the like personalities on the team. So the more I think about it, I think Vrabel does stick at 4 and takes somebody. But you never know with these teams at the top. I guess other buzz going with the draft, like Ashton Jeanty. I feel like people are trying to figure out where he's going to fall within this first round. And I guess to ask you, what do you think about taking running backs? Like, what is too high to take a running back? Even a running back like Jeanty that seems like he's going to be really good at the next level.
If you asked me last year, I'd probably say something like in the top 10, but this running back position is way better than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. If you think he's good, he's good. I mean, Jeanty could, I know the Patriots wouldn't do it, but if he was drafted at 4, like that's completely fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm fine with him going 6, to the Raiders. I'm fine with him going 10 to the Bears. I'm fine with him going 12 to the Cowboys. I mean, all those spots are teams that are running back needy teams. And if you're going to play him, we all want to see him play. So I'm fine with all of them. The running back position is way different than what it used to be years ago, to where they're more of a need rather than, maybe more of a luxury pick. And I think that's where we thought the Lions were doing with like a Jahmyr Gibbs. It's like, why would you draft that position that high? And it's like, oh, well, dang, look how good they are with Jahmyr Gibbs now.
Mm-hmm.
Even Saquon being that running back who was drafted number 2 by the Giants. And it's like, well, yeah, he might have had his injuries, but he's still showing why he was like the best running back in the NFL. He's being paid like one. So, I mean, give or take. But I think if you really like the guy and it's a position of need, and in this NFL, those are positions of need, take it.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he feels a need, like why not? I do agree with you. If you think he's a if you think he's the next Derrick Henry or something, your fan base isn't going to care that you took him top 10 if he turns out to be Derrick Henry.
Nope. Nobody will care. Everyone will be like, it's just a 10th round pick.
Right.
Well, 10th overall pick.
Mm-hmm. And once again, as long as it fills a need, because once again, I know I like kind of pointing this out with the Falcons. Some people thought Bijan was a luxury pick, but Bijan's turned into be basically their best offensive weapon. So, hindsight, sure, maybe they shouldn't have taken him when they did because they had Algier on the roster, but he's a really good running back, so you kind of live with it. John says Omarion Hampton from UNC or Genty to Dallas.
I like Hampton, but Hampton, I like UNC, so I've seen a lot of Hampton tape. It's just like him. The running back thing is just kind of tough because it's like a lot of people just have him if he's moving up. It's either to like 12 to the Cowboys or like late 20s or the second round. So I just find it hard for the Cowboys to take that. I mean, I'm not against it, but it's just like, has Hampton really been like kind of that like big first round prospect? Was he kind of that big noise running back we even heard throughout college this season? Even if you look at that Ohio State core with Travion Henderson and who is it? I'm trying to think. Quinshon Judkins. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
All those guys were kind of been talked about in the same range. I wouldn't be against, the Cowboys trading down and getting Hampton, but 12, that kind of seems like, oh, is he really worth that pick? That's where you kind of get a little confusing. But if the Cowboys were like to get him at like 22, 24, I don't think anyone would make noise.
Yeah,
especially if like let's say Genty goes 10 to the Bears. Do you think Omarion Hampton is 2 picks down from that? And quality wise? In comparison to when
probably
you can get one of these better offensive tackles on the board. What if Ted McMillan's still on the board? Or even taking one of these receivers like Matthew Golden.
Right, because the Cowboys have plenty of needs. Wide receiver, like you brought up, opposite CeeDee Lamb is a big need. O-line if you want to go there. So yeah, I think if they took Hampton, it would probably. I would be interested to see how Cowboys fans would react to it. Because I feel like Jerry Jones is skating on thinner and thinner ice each and every year with the decisions that he makes. And another bad draft, it could get really ugly down in Dallas. And plus, for most people say, like, the running back class this year, yeah, Genty's like the prize, but there's a lot of good names out there that you can get a good running back mid-rounds and feel okay with it. So
Caleb Johnson, Cam Scatterbo.
Yeah.
So many other good guys.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, even a guy like Donovan Edwards, like a couple of years ago, Donovan Edwards was seen as a really good NFL prospect, and now he's kind of like flying under the radar. And he's a guy you could get probably 4th round or maybe even later. I've seen some projections like he could be like a 5th round guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like with the running backs, you don't want to necessarily reach on any of them when there's going to be so many of them out there. But I mean, are there any more kind of draft, buzz that you've been hearing?
I mean, outside of, just the normal ones, this team considering to trade down, like for the Panthers are considering about it, just a bunch of different teams. And it's just like the teams that suck. I'm sorry, if I'm a top 10 team, I'm never trading down. Not unless I have like a bad injury season, then I might consider it. But even still, no, no. These are top 10 quality talent worth guys at top 10, top 15, maybe top 20, if he reaches. Oh, sorry, we were talking about transfer news, but Jaden Knott just transferred to Oklahoma, so I'm cool with that.
Okay.
Best running back in college.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, like I was saying, these are top 10 quality guys. And if you're not a team that is ready to compete now, which, sorry, Tennessee, sorry, Cleveland, sorry, New York, I'll put the Patriots to the side just because Vrabel is Vrabel and he's done much more with less. So I'll keep the Patriots to the side. Jacksonville, you're probably not it either, Then you get to some of these later teams. Oakland, well, not Oakland, Las Vegas. I don't know. Gino's there, so maybe. Pete Carroll's there, maybe. The Jets, probably not. I mean, you get to these later teams, it's like, why don't you just take these top 10 quality guys? You need them. And a lot of these times, unless they're the random busts that happen, the one out of, the 10 or the one out of the 15 that happen, you're going to get a good quality guy. Unless you really need more draft capital, which some of these teams do, man, just take these talents, because you're gonna reap your rewards so much.
Yeah. Look, I feel like the wait since the Super Bowl to the draft has been like excruciating, and now we're down to basically was it a week and a half away next Thursday.
Yep, next Thursday.
First round of the draft, which if you're new to the channel, Sideline to Sideline will be back next Thursday for the live draft watch along and everything like that. So make sure you do tune in. Had a lot of fun doing it last time, so you get our live reactions to the picks and everything like that.
I watched my team taking an offensive line in the first round.
Please, John has a question.
I talk crap on it, but hey,
do you think Jahad Campbell falls to your Seahawks?
I mean, I'm not sure how many people are going to be up on the Jahad Campbell board. He's kind of in a weird spot because I've seen him go up to as high to the Seahawks, maybe a couple picks higher, and then I've seen him be like a second, third round guy. So it just depends if another team is really high on him. I know Seattle really likes him a lot. With McDonald being there, that's kind of a guy that he really likes.
Mm-hmm.
And Seattle has notoriously said they will not overpay on guards. They think people overpay on them. Not maybe spend super high draft capital on them, but please do. We've had the worst offensive line the last couple of 5-6 seasons. Maybe you might start treating it like it's a luxury position and spend a little more quality on it. I think Campbell will be a good pick though. He's just in a weird spot where when you see a guy who could go in the second round, it kind of depends on that board falls. Is I think the type of guy he'll be, because he might be a guy if Seattle's 1, 2, or 3 is gone, that's the 4, or their 2, 3, or their 1, 2's gone, he's the 3. But if 1, 2's there, maybe not other teams view him at that high. Mm-hmm. So it could really depend, or a team could view him as that high of a guy and try to even maybe trade up to get him.
Yeah, I think Campbell would be a good addition, but it's so hard to predict what some of these other teams will do. Like you said, who knows if Campbell is a guy that maybe somebody jumps ahead of the Seahawks to take, and the Seahawks are kind of plan B. And we know with certain positions, all it takes is for one guy to go off the board, and then you get that little mini run at the position. And that's where some teams can kind of feel helpless, where they're waiting for a guy to fall to them, and they start seeing that position going up ahead of them.
Sadly, I think, and it's like this every year, I think we'll see that on quarterbacks. I think people don't realize it, but we'll probably get 4 QBs taken in the first round.
Really? Who's the 4 which 4 do you think? So you think Milroe would be the 4th, or
Milroe.
Gabriel? Okay.
I think the Steelers really like him a lot. I think if they're really thinking about their situation, he's available there, and let's say, like we said, Ward, Sanders, and Dart are gone. Milroe's there at 22. Maybe a team just traded up to get Dart. I think they'll lock and load on that pick.
I mean, look, the Steelers quarterback situation, which still hasn't been resolved. They're still only have Mason Rudolph. Aaron Rodgers is still a free agent.
He's still
he's going to drag this out as long as he can, and it's so annoying.
He's really trying to get Minnesota to sign him. He does not want to go to Pittsburgh, and it's so prevalent.
Yeah, it's just he's waiting on some news that JJ is still recovering, may not be ready, and then he's gonna be like, I'm still here. Give me a call. I'm ready.
That he would give him a championship year, like a 1-win year. This is a year, and then he'd be an opening mentor to McCarthy.
Yeah. So Pittsburgh definitely needs to. I mean, I could see that bottom of the first round. Milroe on the board. Why not take him? And who knows? He gets in the camp. Maybe he beats out Mason Rudolph. If not, you want him to sit a couple of games, kind of like the Drake May method. Mason Rudolph's been around. He knows the system. He could, teach him a little bit. And then mid-season, you go to him. Sure, why not? Jory said Jahad's there at 33. She could dream. Obviously, that's Tennessee's first pick in the second round. Yeah. That wouldn't be a good pick for him. All right. I guess unless anybody in the chat has any other draft questions or anything like that, we'll switch gears to the NBA because the play-in tournament starts tonight.
The
I'm a
Hawks,
big fan.
the Hawks are playing right now. I'm not sure what the
Yeah.
score is. I know the game's on tip-off or it's about to tip off in like 6 minutes. I don't know.
I think they
I get the
I think
notification.
they
So
tipped it 8. No, they started. The Magic are up 2015 right now.
okay.
But are you a fan of the play-in tournament? I feel like every year it's like the first question that people bring up, like if they're fans of it or not. I love it.
I like it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen time and time again some of these lower seeds coming in and winning, and sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it's chalk, and people are like, "Well, what was the point?"
Mhm.
Well, sometimes it does change, so that's kind of the whole point of it. I mean, especially in like a year like the Western Conference, where every team was just like really tight. It's like, dang, just seeing like the Grizzlies, the Warriors, the Kings, and the Mavericks kind of all on that outskirts. It's like, oh, dang, okay.
Mhm.
And I'm probably a lot of people would still just want to hope the Warriors and the Grizzlies get in, but overall, I mean, things happen. I like it though. I think it gives teams opportunities to really show. Especially like let's see if a team is like necessarily like an 8 seed or a 7 seed and it's because of injuries, gets maybe like a more younger, hungrier team a chance to be able to come in and compete for a spot.
Yeah. I mean, look, the Heat took their 8 seed, made a run to the finals.
Yeah.
Yes, that's not going to happen every year, but the fact that it can happen, I think gives it, gives a reason for it to be around, gives it some legitimacy, and I'm here for it. Like I do like it a lot. Did Miami have a play-in last year or year before? It went pretty far. Yeah, they made the finals from it. 2023?
There's 2 years before last championship I thought.
Yeah.
What it was, Mavericks, Celtics, then it was Nuggets, Celtics, and then what? Was that the year after before that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. So, I mean, look, I've been pushing for draft lottery tournament. Let the bad teams fight for the number 1 pick. Like
I don't like that though.
I'm all
for
for
not
it.
liking that is because it's like, imagine being like a 14th seed, like let's say the Kings get in or something like that.
Mhm.
Like that's still a pretty good team. Like the Warriors, imagine like Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler.
I don't know. I'm not saying those teams. I'm saying the teams that aren't in the play-in. So it'd be like your Spurs, your Hornets. Like let them do a little mini tournament to go for the number 1.
That's not fair if Wembanyama gets to compete for the first pick. Then you know what happens? It's Cooper Flash, Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox.
I mean, yeah. If Portland was in the play-in, they could upset some teams. Yeah, because Portland had a really good end to their season. Like they would go into something like that off of some momentum, and the guys. Well, I don't. Guys would probably play hard to get that number 1 pick, especially if it is like a Cooper Flag that's there. I'm just saying. Look, Adam Silver is willing to try anything.
I feel like the bad teams would just get worse.
I mean, well, look, it's
Might
either
be the
that.
Knicks fans of only chance of getting that number 1 pick though.
Yeah, but look, we're gonna see the draft lottery and everything. And look, if it's not the worst team that gets the number 1 pick, the conspiracy theories are gonna start flying. Because I've already thrown out there Cooper Flag to the Sixers. I could see it happening. Because you would instantly make the Sixers better, which makes
I feel like
Sixers better, Celtics Sixers. Like it's
The NBA tries to keep it rigged, and then like when people try to predict it too soon, they're like, we gotta pivot.
Right. If everybody starts saying that it's going to be rigged, then watch, it'll be like Flag to
the Hornets. Him and LaMelo.
Yeah. I mean, look, what if the Pelicans do it again?
Man, that was like the most rigged draft lot. One of the most in my head because you trade Anthony Davis away and instantly get the first pick for Zion Williamson. At a low odd too, because weren't they like projected to get pick 11 and then jumped up to number 1 because they had a super low odds to win that draft and they won it.
Yeah. Look, it's the NBA.
Even
All the way back to
that. Even LeBron came out and said he was like he had like a interview or something. He was like, they might have done something, to get me to Cleveland.
I mean, it does go before that. Like everybody thought the Patrick Ewing to the Knicks one was rigged. Yeah, it happens every time. Every time there's like a no doubt number one guy. If he doesn't end up on the worst team, it's always going to be, who's working behind the scenes to make it happen. But
who has the highest odds this year?
Let's see. Well, remember they changed it to now. I guess the three worst teams have the same odds, and then it goes down from there. So I'm assuming you're looking at Washington. I can literally pull it up. I know Washington's one of them.
Of course, every year.
Washington, Jazz, and the Hornets are their bottom three. So they all have the same odds to get the number one pick. Look, Danny Ainge would love Cooper Flagg in Utah.
Yeah.
You have Flagg, you have Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton. You probably start doing some things out there. Watch a team trade KD and another player for Flagg, LOL. Well, look, we do know KD is on the move. I guess we'll transition to that before we get into playing, because that is newsworthy. That and the firings, the coach firings. But Phoenix fires Budenholzer, then comes out and goes with, we're going to facilitate a trade to KD because we need to change it up and kind of start over, which was bound to happen because KD, we know how KD is, very sensitive or whatever. When he heard that his name was in the trade talks with Jimmy Butler, he didn't like that. He was upset by that. So he kind of wanted out anyway. So I guess looking at the Phoenix situation, is trading KD enough, or do they need to just go Ja Morant grenade celebration and just blow it up and go KD, Booker, like you get a call on anybody, you're making a deal. Outside of Bradley Beal, because they probably can't move him. He has a no trade clause, and his contract is horrible right now. So would you move Booker as well?
I would
move KD.
Because I think you still have KD's a lot older than Booker. I think when you look at it, he's that franchise guy. And it's not like he's ever had any like problems with the Suns organization. It was really he just kind of had problems with Budenholzer.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of he's gone. He's gone. Yeah. So I think Booker's that guy. He's that franchise guy. He's untouchable, man. You can't move on from him. As where KD, as great of a player as he is, he's been shown he's been a movable guy. He's shown he's out, different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I feel like if you blow it up, I mean, what's going to happen? You're just going to have a bunch of draft picks for the next couple of years, and then Bradley Beal. I mean, Suns fans aren't going to be happy with that. I mean, to hold on to Booker, try to see what you can get for KD, because you still will get a good amount for KD.
Mm-hmm.
And then just see what you can do with Booker and Beal. Maybe change up the process a little bit. Might give, Beal a little more touches to be a little bit better. Different things like that. I know a lot of his struggles was injuries as well, too, this season. So.
What's going on, Carmike?
No, but, if everyone else agrees that he's not going to another spot, if everyone else also thinks he's trash, he isn't moving.
Yeah. Okay, so we have some disagreement here in the chat about Cooper Flagg. Because Trayton said Flagg isn't as good as the hype wants him to be, and John doesn't agree with it. I guess where do you land on Cooper Flagg? Because I feel like the way he's being talked about, like he's going to be one of those number one picks, like a Duncan, a Wemby, like one of these number one picks that like alters a franchise. Do you think he is that type of guy? Not to say he's going to be a bad player, but he is being hyped up as like a generational guy.
Do I think he could probably compete up to like maybe their levels? Not maybe. It's just so hard to say because Cooper Flagg's good because Cooper Flagg does it all pretty good is what I would say. Whereas you look as like a Zion Williamson, a Wembanyama, some of these bigger first round picks. You could even look at last year's draft, for example, Zachary Richashire. Like, I'm a Hawks fan.
Mhm.
Not a lot of hype around that guy, and it's not because he wasn't that big out polarizing figure. I'm sorry, a 7'4" center shooting threes and getting 8 blocks a game. That's pretty cool. Zion Williamson literally throwing 360 dunks in the middle of NCAA college games. That's pretty cool. Different things like that. But the thing with Cooper Flagg is he just does it all pretty good. Like, he's a solidified number 1 overall pick because he's talented. He doesn't have maybe that star factor in comparison to some of these other guys, but I think without a doubt he's this first overall pick. I mean, if there's disagreement, who are you taking over Cooper Flagg then for the first overall pick? Because then that would be the real argument, but then I don't think there's anyone you could pick that goes over him.
So look, I guess I'm gonna try to speak for Trajan here. I don't know if Trajan's doubting that Flagg is the number 1 pick. I think he's doubting the impact Flagg will have. Like I said, a lot of people are like, Flagg is a can't miss. I think to Trajan's point, you'll look back at the draft and go, Flagg was a number 1 pick in a, I don't know, decent draft. He was clearly the best player in that draft, but don't know if he's on a Duncan or a Wemby level. I think that's where Trajan's coming from. Trajan, you can, help me clarify it. Everyone thought Eddie was going to be the next Giannis. Didn't hear his name this year.
And not to say anything to,
Okay, so he's saying you take Flagg. He's just saying he's being hyped up more than what he is.
It's just hard because you got to think this man is he was 17, 18 years old playing in this. He's played with this U.S. Olympic team, did really well. And I'm not sorry, that's not from outside figures. That is NBA coaches, Olympic coaches, NBA talent saying that he was really good and did his work. And I mean, you say whatever about that Houston loss that they had in the tournament, but he dropped 27 points, 4 assists on the number 1 defense in the country. I mean, it's just hard. I think it's just because maybe he doesn't have that, star factor. It's like people are just like, there's not anything to grip onto him to be like, whoa, he's this polarizing figure. But he hasn't shown me anything, especially given his age, that he can't be as good as these guys. I like, maybe that's because I think Cooper Flagg's good a lot. I like when, how many times does a player really lead his team in every single stat, basically?
Yeah.
At his age.
Yeah.
So.
People want him to be more than he is.
His work ethic is so good. I mean, that's what a lot of guys have been saying.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things working against Flagg. The school, Duke. And I've said this for a few years. Like, when it comes to Duke, you got to make sure, like, you can't take everybody from Duke who was a great player at Duke and think they're going to be great in the NBA. You got to be careful. Like, Flagg, I think, will be one that's good. Tatum has turned out to be one that's good. But then you got a lot of Sheldon Williams types who was seen as a great college player and then got to the NBA and kind of fell to mediocrity. And I think when you bring up, like, Flagg's work ethic, I think for Flagg, he will be seen as more of a Tatum type, where you hear people talk about Tatum. He's not the flashiest guy, but he's, fundamentally, he's really good. He can kind of do a little bit of everything. If that's what Cooper Flagg turns into, well worth the number 1 pick. And maybe that isn't kind of the hype that was kind of brought along with him, but he would still have a really good career. I think where he goes is going to be important for him as well, because I would hate to see him go to, like a Wizards team that's like
they're not
5-6 years away from doing anything of worthwhile.
But even still, I mean, I don't know. Sarr was pretty good this year. Maybe I'm just being a little optimistic for him, but I thought Sarr was good this year. But I like what you said, the Jazz. I just don't think when you look at the Wizards, they're not going to – they don't know how to rebuild. They don't know how to rebuild guys. They're just hoping one of these guys could be like just a game changer, and then they just like have it. But they don't know how to actually build up these game changers.
There's a lot of growth to do. Could use another year in college. John brings up Broom. People think Broom's going to be better because he stayed in college longer. Didn't hear his name last year when he was on a different team.
Agreed. Broom isn't even a top 5 guy. If you look at all the top 5 guys you have probably in mock drafts, it's gonna be like what Derek Queen, who's 20, Ace Bailey, who's like 18, Dylan Harper, who's also really young, BJ Edgecombe, who's also really young. A lot of these older guys might be solid in the NBA, and I can't. There's a couple players that come to my head, and I can't really think about it now. But it's like they're good, like just rotation guys, and that's probably what it's going to be. Maybe a guy who can get you 10, 11 points a night, 2-3 rebounds, 4 assists, shoot decent from the field. But a lot of these guys that people are going after are like game changers. Kamar Malawan, 18, big center.
Yeah. Look, there's a stigma in the NBA that if you stay in college past your like sophomore year, they kind of view you differently. And look, for guys like Broom, teams that will value a guy like that, teams that are at the bottom of the first round, teams that have an established culture, teams that are either contending or very close to it, and they'll draft a guy like Broom knowing that he's been through a lot in college, and the kind of the culture shock of the NBA won't be that big of a thing because they've stuck around in college for a while and they've been through ups and downs of seasons and all the grind and everything like that. So I think, like, I like Broom. He seems like he'd be a good prospect, but once again, with all these guys, fit's gonna matter. Because if the wrong team picks you up, you're gonna be mired in terrible situation for your whole rookie year deal. I mean, your rookie deal, not rookie year, but your whole rookie deal, and then who knows what happens with your career. Hey, what's going on, Con Man? Unfortunately, he'll be drafted by like the Jazz, which never gets on national TV. It's going to be tough to get the national attention, but he's only 18. I think because of the hype with Flag, if he did get drafted to like Utah,
then at least
he'd probably be worth like 1 or 2 national games just to throw him out there. The opponent would have to be probably some other team that's kind of on a lower level, but yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, Con Man. That's kind of why I said the conspiracy theory. You get them into Philly or even San Antonio. Those are 2 teams that get on national TV. Why wouldn't the league try to make that happen? I mean, he goes to San Antonio. Like, that would be nuts.
Yeah.
Haskell, De'Aaron Fox, Wemby, Cooper Flag,
Keldon Johnson.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Stephen Castle will probably win Rookie of the Year this year.
Flag's career dies in Utah. I don't think it dies in Utah because I think Danny Ainge, if there's one thing, he's not afraid to make deals. And what we've seen over past couple of years, I think it's been there like 2 years, he's just acquiring whatever he can. Like, you throw him a second round pick, he'll take it. You want to throw some guy that isn't playing for you, you're doing like a salary dump, he'll take that as well. He's going to acquire all this, and then he's going to make some move at some point to get talent in Utah.
You also
I don't think it's the worst place for him, but I see what you're saying, Carmike.
Like, they get they still have, Lauri Markkanen and John Collins on the roster. One, if not both of those guys are gone, have to get Cooper Flag in. So then you're getting more, to build around him with. Even if it's some, veteran, type of guys, kind of teach him a role, different things like that. Ainge is a smart guy. You give him Cooper Flag, he's going to try to make the world out of Cooper Flag.
Yeah. Ain't nobody going to know Utah. I mean, it's not the ideal place for him, but I think that's why Utah went and got Danny Ainge. Like, Danny Ainge, this is what he did with Boston. He kept getting draft picks. He kept bringing in guys, and everybody was like, when's he going to make his move? And then, boom, he goes out there and pulls off, you could say, like, team-altering trades. And now the Celtics are where they are now with, Brad Stevens and everything kind of carrying it on. But that's why he's there. So Flag would just be another asset for him. So like Dylan said, Collins or Sexton or one of these guys who you could probably get maybe if it is like a second round pick or like a player swap for, he's willing to pull the trigger on that. So we'll see. Boston's a big market team. Yeah, true. But I mean, look, there was plenty of pressure on him to do something there as well. I mean, Utah has a history. The Malone Stockton days. I'm sure Jazz fans are waiting for that to come back. You know, you had Mitchell and Gobert, who had some interesting years, but was never really good enough to make it to a finals or get to that next level. Like, Jazz fans are hungry for another winner. Utah hasn't been a real team since Williams and Boozer. I mean, those are some good times as well. Mitchell had Utah overachieving. I can agree with a little bit with that.
I would say Mitchell and Gobert, because you got to think at that time Gobert was playing like some of the best defensive basketball. Whatever, I know people don't like Gobert personally. Whatever, personally, I'm not talking about him personally, but like, man, he was playing some of the best defensive basketball at that time too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe not on the perimeter, but you know that's not his job.
Right. That's true. I mean, he kind of sort of needs to kind of add that to his repertoire, especially with the way the league is changing. Like,
agreed, but you know,
the only way to make it happen is to give picks in the whole team, and it will have to be a 3-way agreement. Yeah. I mean, yes, that's always going to be the hard part in Utah. Ainge has to find willing trade partners. Flags return to Duke anyway. I say VJ Edge will go top 3. You think Flags returning to Duke? I don't think so.
I
mean, he could. He technically could, but I don't see that happening. Let's see. All right, so I guess let's go into play-in, as it looks like Orlando is kind of distancing themselves from the Hawks early on.
I saw that too. I was like, well, I guess we'll play. I'd rather play Cleveland than you guys.
Danny's not. Danny's gonna work the phones. That's gonna be one thing he will do. He just has to find somebody willing to deal. I mean, look, maybe the Hawks are taking the strategic route with this, because I know the Hawks don't want to face the Celtics. They've been there, done that. I think a lot of teams aren't necessarily buying Cleveland right now, and Atlanta may think they have a shot against Cleveland. I wouldn't think that, but they may be thinking that. And I went into this wanting to kind of see Orlando, because I'm kind of over the Boston-Atlanta matchup. I've seen that enough. And I mean, Orlando might be a bigger competitor than Atlanta, which I guess I shouldn't be rooting for, but I'd rather see that as a matchup than Atlanta once again. I don't need Trae Young doing the whole shoulder thing once. I don't need it. Like, give me Banchero versus Tatum. I'll take that for 4 or 5 games. I can live with it. Carmike says Danny's going to get hung up on. Now, that kind of was a problem at the end in Boston, that he was winning so many trades that teams kind of stopped dealing with him. So I don't know how it's viewed with him now in Utah. That could be a thing, Carmike. That actually could be a problem. But, let's look at the play-in tournament. Let me pull up the bracket. But as we talk about it, I guess give me your thoughts on – we'll start in the East. Like, how are you kind of – viewing the East playing? Like, who do you expect to come out of it as a 7-8 seed?
I mean, I'm hoping personally, just Magic Hawks is what you would want. You know, hopefully the Hawks would win this one, but whatever, regardless, just because I don't want to be on the edge of my seat, you know, and have potential not make a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if we're talking about the 7-8 matchups, Magic Heat, if I just have to go with who's leading right now, you know, obviously Magic B7, Magic Hawks, sorry. Magic would be the 7 just because they're leading right now, and then, you know, the Hawks the 8.
So as a Hawks fan, if the Hawks did lose this one, who would you rather see between Miami and Chicago?
That's tough. That's really tough. Both of these teams, I mean, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, the last two play-in tournaments, we've played both the Heat and Miami. We beat
Mhm.
Miami, but lost. Oh, not Heat and Miami, Heat and Bulls. We beat the Heat in I think 2023, and then we lost to the Bulls last year. So I guess just off basic recent knowledge, because this is our fourth straight play-in tournament. I'm just gonna say, hey man, we beat the Heat before. Just give me the Heat again. I don't know. I just hope we win this game. I don't know. I don't like it.
I get it. So I did pull this up because I do know it seems like every year we get into the play-in and people are a little bit confused with it. So just to quickly go over that, Magic and the Hawks are basically playing right now to see who's going to play the Celtics round one. The loser will have to sit around and wait for tomorrow night when the Bulls and the Heat play to see who they will play in the game on Thursday for the 8th seed. And then the same thing works out west. So I do like that tonight we get the 7-8 matchups on both sides. So we'll know the 7 seed by the end of the night, and then Thursday we'll wait and find out who will be the 8 seed. Banchero and Carter need one more bucket getter, and Magic will be a contender. I agree. I think Orlando is a team that's intriguing, but they are a piece away. Because I like Banchero, I like the Wagners, I like if you look at them on paper, you like what you see, but when you see Orlando on the court, there is something that's missing.
A guard.
I think guard play. I think they could benefit from maybe a more vet presence because they, even with this group kind of being together a couple of years, they're still depending on a lot of young guys to win for them at a high level when they make the playoffs. Because we saw that Cleveland series last year. I could argue Orlando was the better team, but Cleveland, because Cleveland did win that one. I almost forgot about that series, but like Cleveland was better late game situations, and that's where Orlando kind of fell apart. So they kind of just need more time together to get better, but I think they also need a vet presence on that team. So I guess we'll assume based off of everything going on right now that the Magic beat the Hawks. And I know you said you'd rather see the Heat over the Bulls. I can't look past the fact that the Bulls ended their season playing really well.
Yeah, that's kind of why I don't play them.
I think that's the worry with the play-in tournament. Like if you get a team that has some momentum working into this, they become very dangerous. And I do think if the Bulls got past the Heat, that they would look at a matchup with the Hawks and think, yeah, they could win that one. And I wouldn't doubt it. Like I said, you finish this season the way that they did, I wouldn't put it past them at all. And I guess we'll see with that side. Let's look at the West really quickly. So like I said, we got Warriors Grizzlies tonight, and that's going to be an interesting matchup. As Carmike says, he wants that game to start. Warriors went into the final game of the season with a chance to be, I think it's high as 4, most likely 5 with a win, but then they lose late and end up down as a 7 seed. The Grizzlies fire their coach. What was it, like 2 weeks ago, heading into this playoff run, and they find themselves as an 8 seed. Who do you see having the advantage in that matchup? I think it's an interesting matchup when you look at it, because both teams, I think going into the year, had kind of higher expectations than necessarily a 7 or 8 seed, but these could also be a 7 or 8 seed that would give a top seeded, Thunder or Rockets team kind of more than they bargained for.
I'm taking the Warriors. I just think just the veteran leadership, I mean, granted they made, like we said, a lot of their struggle started more towards the start of the season. They weren't really a better team. You have someone like Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, even someone like Draymond Green, Steve Kerr, veteran leadership. I think they'll look as a play-in as, like a good opportunity to get started. And then, like we say, having a run matchup against the Rockets is favorable. Steve Kerr's a smart man. And even though the Thunder is a young team in and of itself. A lot of people really like the Thunder this year to make a lot of noise. I think playing the Rockets is an ideal matchup. I think Steve Kerr knows that. He's going to go out there and tell his guys to play hard as they can tonight, because you'll have a good amount of rest before that actual game.
What's going on, Mo?
But yeah, I don't think you want to go play the Thunder on a 7-game series, especially with them being young as you are, and especially you being an older team. Think again, that's kind of the same thing for the Rockets, but the Rockets, I would guess, would be a little bit older in some aspects. Fred VanVleet, Tari Eason, different things like that. Think you go out there, you win tonight. I'll take the Warriors.
I agree. I think the Warriors will go for this one, because I do think they would rather go the Rockets route versus the Thunder, and I do think some people might be underestimating the Rockets, but I think it's only because we just don't know what to expect from the Rockets. The Warriors, we know who they are. We know what they're capable of. Even though, as Mo says, the only way they're going to make the finals is if they buy tickets like everyone else. I mean, look, some people think the Warriors could be a Western Conference final team. Some think they're going to be like a one and done. I think it's, you probably have a valid argument for either one. Carmike says Thunder still don't have veteran help to get them over the hump. That's why Katie's going back home. If you are Phoenix, that's what you're hoping for. You're hoping for the Thunder to come up short. You make that call as soon as their season ends. You try to get Jalen Williams out of there and whatever else you can. I could see that. I also think Houston, they would, if Houston or the Thunder, one of them falls short, I think the Suns call that team as soon as their season ends and see what they can kind of work out. So I agree with you. I said that about the Thunder and the Grizzlies as well. The Grizzlies don't have any veteran presence, and that's kind of why we're seeing what we're seeing. Whether it's Ja. I've seen some people saying like Ja's kind of doing this to trying to force his way out. I just kind of think Ja's just I don't even know anymore with Ja. Mo says he called that OKC falls short. Yeah, Mo, I definitely have heard you say KD going back to OKC because they fall short. Yes, I definitely remember that. So yeah, well, Phoenix is gonna be watching that like, yeah. I don't know who, because let's say the Warriors move on to 7. Who would you have coming out of the Kings Mavericks to then face the Grizzlies in the I guess the game for the 8 seed?
Will Davis be playing?
AD is back. Yes.
I'm taking the Grizz. I'm taking the Grizzlies to beat that final 8 spot, but give me the Mavericks.
Okay.
Give some Maverick fans some hope. Maybe they even play the Grizzlies in like a late game. Make it close. Be a shocker if they come out and win that though. Like, how would you feel as a Mavericks fan, being that, final spot in the play-in, to come in and win in the play-in and taking an 8 seed and, playing the Thunder in a series with not healthy, but Anthony Davis back.
If you're Nico,
that's your best case scenario.
You kind of need this. Like, you need the Mavericks to beat the Kings. You would need the Mavericks to beat the Grizzlies.
And you need to win at least 1-2 games against the
Thunder. Win a game against the Thunder, be competitive in like another one. That's what he needs. But if they go out, if they get blown out by the Kings right away, like that'd be the worst thing for Nico down in Dallas.
It'd be literally the crappiest bow on his season.
Yes. Rockets or OKC landing spots, but thinks KD wants to go back where it all started. Grizz lack leadership, and I would do the unthinkable and move Ja. I think that has to look. I think with a lot of these teams, whether it is Memphis or a Philly or a Phoenix, I don't care about the star power you think you have. You also can't just run it back year in and year out with these guys if they're never going to take you anywhere. And look, for all the highlights that Ja gives you with his dunks and everything like that, I think there are still flaws with his game. I do think the lack of leadership has kind of messed up whatever momentum the Grizzlies had a couple of years ago. I think all that's out the window. And the move in Taylor Jenkins kind of solidified that thinking. And yeah, I think Ja Morant has a lot of pressure not only against the Warriors, but to get out of that and get into the playoffs. And there would be a lot of pressure on the Grizzlies to not get swept by the Thunder. Like if they push the Thunder 6-7 games, that would look good for Ja. But if it's like a 4 or 5 game, really uncompetitive type of sweep, if you're Memphis, like you got to be like, do we really need to do this for another year with this guy where we got to worry about what celebration he's going to do next? Because now it's almost like he's doing this as like a front to the league because they find him.
No, he is. He literally says, I have
Like,
many.
You don't need your leading guy acting like that, because that's the kind of stuff with a young team in Memphis that could just permeate through the locker room. And they have some young pieces on that team that are workable if they had a guy who could bring it all together. Ja, unfortunately, is not that guy. So I agree with you, Mo. Like moving Ja is something that Memphis, I think, really needs to think about.
But who would want him though?
All it takes is one foolish team to think, we'll get him out of Memphis. We got veterans here. He'll be different. We'll get the best out of Ja. That's all you need. One team to think that.
I was really thinking about that. What teams really have like a solid amount of veterans that would be able to trade for that? Because if you look at these teams that have veterans, it's like a lot of the good teams. I'm like, the Warriors aren't going to do that. The Clippers ain't going to do that. The Nuggets would be interesting, but they don't really have coaching leadership right now. The Timberwolves probably would not. The Lakers would blow up before I think that would happen. JJ Redick and him would literally fight on the court, I think. And then you look at the Rockets, they're kind of young. And then you look at some of these other teams. Let's switch it over to the East. It's like the Magic. I feel like Ja would, I would hate for him to be like kind of that, that cancer. I hate to use that word, but, drag the locker room down. Especially, I would hate to throw him in another group full of young, talented guys, and he just changed the whole dynamic for them.
Yeah. I mean, that is an interesting question. Like, what's a locker room that could probably
benefit them both? Because you have to look at it from both perspectives.
Because there are teams that I've thought about that need to kind of get younger. I'm looking like the Bucks or somebody like that, but the Bucks, could you imagine like him and Giannis? I don't know if that's a good match. And you got Dame there anyway.
The rim running would be insane. No, just imagine just Giannis and Ja just posterizing 4-5 people a game, like getting shot 17-7 on threes.
I agree with that, Carmike. Like just all this extracurricular stuff with Ja, just like take the team to a conference finals. Like just do that. Spend your time working on that. Yeah, Giannis probably would. Yeah.
I mean, the King. I hate trading in conference is different, but I mean, the Kings are an interesting team. I don't think Dallas would do it just because, I think Dallas wants to hold off. We're done making moves probably for a year. So let's let another team make a dumb move first before we throw our hat back in the mix. Maybe Kings would be interesting. You got Sabonis there, but it's tough. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Ja Morant. Yeah, because it's just crazy. The fall from just a couple of seasons ago, everybody thought Memphis was the new it team in the West. That lasted maybe a season, and now it's to the point where not necessarily blowing it up, but kind of resetting the way that you view that team. Maybe it's better to build around Desmond Bane than necessarily Ja Morant. Bane, Jaren Jackson, you got Aldama.
Zach Edey.
You got some guys there. So Memphis is looking at Ja to be that guy to lead them to the promised land. Problem is, as Carmike said, Ja is just focused on the wrong stuff right now. Sacto is a perfect fit. He'd be the best player on a below average team. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't think they necessarily do it unless Ja kicks down the door and goes,
I want to trade. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
They'll keep Jaw until he requests it, or until they physically can't keep him anymore. Until it's where it's literally detrimental.
Carmike, I never said Bane was going to necessarily bring butts to the seats, but it's just like if Jock keeps this up, it's going to get to a point where it's like addition by subtraction, where you just move him because the fit just becomes toxic. What's going on, Pavel? Playoff basketball is the best.
It is.
Let's go Lakers. No, okay. I've got Laker fans. Yeah, build around Bane. I mean, I feel like we've seen where Bane's the best player. They're not necessarily that much better on the court, but I think just for morale reasons, that's why I said that. So, look, Memphis is your, like, if you have a young team and you want to see how not to do things, just look at Memphis the past couple of seasons. All their vets are gone, Steven Adams and guys like that. And they turned the franchise over to a young guy that kind of showing wasn't ready for it. Although before all that stuff over that summer happened, like John Morant was seen as, a great ambassador for the game. He was doing all the stuff with like fans and all that. And then it just changed. Ja brings that entertainment to Memphis. Agree. At the end of the day, you have to win and get ticket sales. Yeah, I don't think they actually move him. Like, I do agree with you, Carmike. He is the attraction. So at least until somebody else on that team kind of steps up into the limelight, yeah. And maybe that's the problem. Ja feels comfortable, so he thinks he can do whatever he wants. That's why you need a vet. I don't even know who,
Like I saw, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because when we were thinking about it, it's just like I don't know where you could move him where that makes sense.
Because like you had Marcus Smart in the building, and I don't think that changed anything.
Yeah, but also you got to remember Marcus Smart, a vet in and of himself, but he's also kind of had his moments.
Yeah. I mean, I know who they probably should go get, but it'd be coming from my team, and I don't want to necessarily do that. Like a Drew Holiday. You get Drew Holiday there. He's a guy who's won at a high level, doesn't need a lot of attention. Maybe that would have some effect on him. Or an Al Horford type. Like, that's what they kind of need. But Jaren Jackson needs to become more dominant and get highlight plays more. You can build around that. I agree. Jaren Jackson has a bit of a finesse side to him that I don't like about him. Kind of like the Cat thing. Because I said that about Cat too. If Cat had more of a dominant edge to him, he'd be a much better player. So I agree with you, Carmike. Yeah. But Jaren Jackson does play good defense. He at least has that to build off of. But yeah, absolutely. Maybe that's where a vet presence would kind of help them as well. Unlock some anger in Jaren Jackson. All right, so we looked at the play-in. I guess the matchups that we do know, we'll go over this really quickly. So we know that the Nuggets and Clippers will face off in the West. We know the Lakers and Timberwolves will face off in the 3-6. We know Pacers, Bucks, 4-5 in the East. And then the Knicks, Pistons are the 3-6 matchup in the East. Which is the more intriguing series of the four? Like, which is the one for you that's can't miss?
Man, I hate to knock on, the Lakers Timberwolves, but I feel like out of all four of those matchups, that one feels the most predictable, as well as the other three. It's just like I don't really know. I don't know. I like a lot, especially that Knicks Pistons one. I think that'll be a really interesting one. I think just overall how the Knicks have played. Both of these teams are good. Kind of struggled against some of the higher echelon type of teams. It's good. It's going to be good. The Knicks are going to. I feel like the Knicks game plan is going to be throw the kitchen sink at Cade Cunningham, literally make him try to do everything. If we shut him off and he still scores 20, whatever. Malik Beasley has 24 points and he's celebrating. Who cares? But, they're going to try to shut off Cade, play everyone as much as they can. Kind of the Tibbs way. So I think that's going to be an interesting matchup because it really kind of will show where Detroit's at. The Knicks is probably a good draw to see where they're at playoff contender wise. Not a team that is, has been dominant in recent years, like in a sense where you were thinking like, championship appearances or even conference finals. So this really will gauge kind of where the Pistons are at. And if they get an upset win, have a true test, playing the winner of who we'll probably think will be the Magic Celtics. So that'll be even a cooler matchup.
Okay. Carmike said every series. Yes, every series is can't miss. I was just saying which one's a little bit more can't miss. Yeah, these series are interesting. Cause I agree with you. Pistons Knicks I could see going either way. I think Bucks Pacers could go either way, and that might be more. I don't know more about the Pacers necessarily in terms of how much I want to believe in that group. I think Nuggets Clippers. I think it's an interesting dynamic in that series where the Clippers play really good defense. The Nuggets defense is So it's like what wins out there? Does Jokic just have a crazy offensive performance to kind of get the Nuggets over the Clippers? Or I know a lot of people think the Clippers could be a conference finals team because of Kawhi. You got Chris Dunn. You have like these great perimeter defenders.
Junior,
or a team in Denver that likes to play on the perimeter.
We are not Ben Simmons fans, but man, give him credit. You threw him in there, and he's been very great defensively.
Right. He still gives you nothing offensively. And I swear, this offseason, Ben better not post that stupid workout video of him shooting threes. I'm over that. You're never going to do it in a game. Stop doing that to yourself. It just makes you look so much worse. But it's probably going to happen because that's what he does every offseason. All the young teams with no real experience or vet presence will fall short. Okay. Knicks are the perfect matchup for the Pistons if the refs let them play. That's a good point because the Knicks take a lot of defense, and they do play a very physical brand. I agree with that, Mo. Kate has no playoff experience. True. Brunson's about to get active. 0.9% faith in the Pacers. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Who's slowing down Joker? That's a great point, Mo, because that Joker Zubac matchup takes center stage. And look, I love Zubac. I don't know if he's going to hold up against Joker. So, yeah, that's going to be the key to that series. How does Zubac do against Joker? He doesn't have to outperform him, but can he close the gap between the two? Get a little physical with him, make it somewhat tough on him. I mean, Joker is a very smart player, so he'll kind of find his way around that, but he has to at least provide some resistance. Joker's going to slow himself down. But I mean, that matchup is very intriguing. So I guess who would you put on upset alert? That is a worry. Zubac ends up in foul trouble because Joker is just that smart of a guy. What if Joker lost the locker room because he looked unfazed that the coach got fired? I mean, that would be an interesting question. Because I don't think Joker wants to be a leader of a locker room, but obviously he's the best player, so he's kind of looked that way. I honestly don't think that they're bothered by Malone being fired, and I feel like the locker room's fine with it. Now we'll have to see who the next coach will be. That might be something else, but I feel like they're okay. But yeah, I guess who do you have on upset alert, and then I guess you want to give me who you have winning those 4 series.
So, I mean, I guess just because I picked it, I mean, just saying 4-5s being upsets is a little rough. So, since this will be the only non-technical 4-5 that I would think about, give me the Pistons over the Knicks.
Okay.
So I'd say that. Just I feel like that's out of like the most definite, upsets that I could think. I really like that. I was gonna say, Pacers over the Bucks, but I really don't. From what I've been seeing, it's just, the Pacers beating the Bucks is not an upset. A lot of people think that will happen. And I agree as well too. I don't even really view that as an upset. I mean, Pacers have been top 4 team in net rating since January 1st. Not even just in the Eastern Conference, just all of basketball. Have had a great second half to their season, been really good. This Buck team has been great with Giannis. Giannis has been on an absolute tear, but still not having that guy like Damian Lillard. Still not 100% sure where you're going to be at. But I do like the Pacers in this series, so I mean, I'll take the Pacers there.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of the Clippers. I think the Clippers will take this game over the Nuggets, and maybe that might hurt me. I think when anyone gets hyped about the Clippers, that's kind of where they show us who the Clippers are, what they're kind of what we're used to them. So kind of scares me a little bit, but I'll take the Clippers. And then on that other side, Lakers Timberwolves. I'm taking the Lakers on that one. Luka, out of every player in the Western Conference, Luka has been to the playoffs most recently. So
Yeah.
one of the best players in basketball, and then you have one of the best players of all time paired up with him, who's also really great in the playoffs. Okay, yeah, no. Timberwolves team's cool. I think, the Rudy Gobert was probably going to do super great. I think he'll probably be really good in this series. He's been doing very good offensively as of late, too. I think he had his career night the other night, but I'm pretty sure it was against Brooklyn, so that's what it is. Who cares? But overall, he's been great offensively as of late. He's been playing a lot better, like more towards his like Utah Jazz days of defense as well too. So I think he's going to be a little bit of a struggle for him because he's going to have a fun time in the paint. Really, it's going to be hard because who really matches up well against Rudy Gobert on that team? Jackson Hayes. And
I mean, Jackson Hayes is very athletic.
Yeah, but he's
like Gobert's gonna have to obviously know where he is when he's going up for boards. But yeah, I feel like Gobert needs to dominate the boards. Absolutely.
And
now this is a good point, Mo.
You look at this team from Luka's perspective. If we look at the Mavericks team that he had last year, he has it's a lot different of a different game plan for him. Luka is a very pick and roll esque type of guy. You look at this Lakers offense; they don't really have too much of that. You had someone like PJ Washington you could go to. A Derek Lively, some of those guys who did a little bit more than just roll, as where got like just Jackson Hayes. LeBron's are pretty much an ISO dominant type of guy as well too. Moves around and stuff a lot, but LeBron does the best work when he has the ball in his hand. Just different things like that. So I do think if the Timberwolves take 2 games or something like that, or maybe they shock us and give it Game 7, that doesn't really surprise me too much. But I do think the Lakers will take the series.
Yeah. So Carmike, to go back to this point. So when I said it that way, I think because of the group that Denver has with them, and because of the personality of Jokic, I feel like they wouldn't let something like that kind of derail their whole season. I think they'll probably look at it as, they promoted the one of the assistants as an interim, so there is some continuity there. I think Jokic is going to go out and kind of do Jokic, no matter who necessarily is the head coach. That's all I'm saying. Look, Mike Malone is a good coach, so obviously that is going to affect it in some way. I'm just looking at their best player, Jokic, and the way that he kind of carries himself. I think once they tip off Game 1 against the Clippers, he's just playing ball at that point. Like, it's not lingering in the back of his head like, oh, I look over there, Mike Malone's not there. That's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, I don't want to, diminish Mike Malone's impact for being there for 10 years. It's a shock to the system, but I think if you're going to rely on anybody to kind of help you past that, I think Jokic is the type of guy who can do that.
And I feel like, and I mean, we don't know the whole situation with everything. This could have been something that could have been built up, maybe at the start of last year, not winning a championship, kind of, something that happened in the offseason that bled into this, because it was, not just the head coach, it was the head coach and the GM.
Mm-hmm.
And it was from many different things that I've heard that they had disagreements. There's arguments between the two sides about different situations. Players didn't like, how much Westbrook was being played and different things like that as well, too. So it could have been just a fluctuation of different things, throughout, last season, from the off season to this season. So maybe that's why, there's not really total, player outcry about it as well, too, because maybe it's something that putting their own opinions out there, but maybe something they're welcoming, something they're not totally against. Yeah, it hurts right before the playoffs, but also at the same time, man, if it's not a situation you wanted to be in, maybe just like refreshing before the playoffs might just put you in a just pure basketball mindset.
Coaching doesn't matter regular season, but when coaching matters is playoffs. That is true. But looking at this Denver team, I think their issues are more so roster than necessarily coach. So even if Mike Malone were there, how much further would this Nuggets team go? Like I said, I think Nuggets problems, MPJ isn't consistent. Murray's had an up and down season. Kind of been an issue the past couple of years. The minute Jokic takes a breather, it's like an automatic negative on the court. Like these are issues that go well beyond Mike Malone. And look, Mo may be right here. They get knocked out in round one to win for Malone because Malone was probably pushing back against some of these moves that had happened. Letting Brown just go for nothing. Letting KCP just walk and never replacing those guys. Like Malone would have to put up maybe the greatest coaching that he ever could to get this team to a finals. And once again, I don't want to diminish Mike Malone's impact, but I do think this roster just is not built for a deep run at all.
I mean, you said it really well, though. Like when Nikola Jokic is on the court, they're like one of the best teams in basketball. But when he's off the court, they're like a below lottery team. They're like a lottery team.
Yeah. And at a certain point, like that's going to wear on Jokic. And yes, Calvin Booth, absolutely. Look, if I were Denver, I would have just moved Booth. You keep Malone, you get another GM there, and try to replenish what Booth destroyed. And because, like I said, Brown, KCP are the big ones. They didn't replace them. All it did was elevate Brown, I guess how you pronounce it, from a key bench player to now a guy who has to start, which then weakens your bench because now your bench is a bunch of young players like Peyton Watson and these guys. And I just think that, this was never going to be the year for the Nuggets for me. So Malone there, Malone not there. I don't think the Nuggets have a deep run in them. I could be wrong. And maybe that would prove my point that you have Jokic. Jokic will take this team as far as he can. And if they get by the Clippers, who knows what happens when they face the Thunder. I don't know. Trade MPJ. I mean, he's a guy that needs a good performance against the Clippers. Like, he can't. I want to root for MPJ so much because when he plays really well, he's a good NBA player. Problem is, those performances are so far in between that you just get frustrated watching him. Because when he's going really bad, he's a black hole on offense. Like, he will just jack up the toughest shots. And that kills their offense more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So he may be the biggest factor to Denver's how long they last in these playoffs. You get good MPJ, you can get by the Clippers. You can make it interesting against the Thunder. I don't know if you'd beat them, but that's a problem too. MPJ is the same player he was when he came in the league. LeBron, the Lakers don't have a winning record in the playoffs or regular season against the Nuggets and the Joker, Murray, and Mike Malone. There's an agenda here by the NBA. I mean, that may be true, but going into the playoffs as they are right now, I would trust LeBron, Luka, and Reeves more than Joker, Murray, and MPJ.
True.
So that's where I am with those two teams. And that's probably Calvin Booth's fault that maybe that Denver's viewed like that. I know. Hey, look, Carmike, I appreciate you. Because if it wasn't for you, I'd be the one who hates LeBron. So I tip my hat to you, Carmike. Yeah, so I guess really quickly, I would agree with you. I think the Lakers beat the T-Wolves. I'll go 5. I think Ant has like one game where he drops like 45 and goes crazy. And that's probably the best game that they have in the series. I think the more I think about it, I feel like the Clippers are probably going to get it done against the Nuggets, but I wouldn't be surprised because, look, there's a lot of reasons to not believe in the Clippers either. Because you get to tell me that Harden's going to be locked in every game of the series. Kawhi is going to have to be healthy every game of the series in order for them to win. But if I was sitting here right now, I'd probably take the Clippers in probably like 6. I'm with you on the Pistons Knicks. I just have this weird feeling that the Pistons, despite their inexperience, kind of get by the Knicks in like some 7-game interesting series like that. Harden has it. I mean, trust me, I definitely agree with that. Playoff Harden, yes. What's going on, Gene? Appreciate it. But look, if the Nuggets are truly in shambles because of the Mike Malone thing, then Harden won't have to be locked in against the Nuggets. Now the Thunder will be different. We'll get there when we get there. But so yeah, I kind of think the Pistons over the Knicks in 7. I think the Pistons' path is watch what all the top teams in the East did against the Knicks. Get Cat in your pick and roll action and attack them there. If the Pistons can do that and find some success, I think they can win that series. Pacers, Bucks. Like Mo said earlier, I don't have faith in the Pacers, but the Bucks are down Dame Lillard, which now means Kuzma can't average 9 points a game against the Pacers like he did this season. If he does that, they don't have a shot. I might go Pacers in 7. Because the Pacers will give 3 games away to the Bucks. So it might come to a game 7 and whether or not Giannis can have a crazy 50-point like triple-double to get him the win. Yeah, that series, yeah. You learned a lot about that series in games 1 and 2. Playoff Harden is trash. I knew he was trash and he got benched in the middle of a game and the Rockets won the game. Look, you're preaching to the choir here. I've kind of been down on Harden for a while. And the lasting image I have of Harden, their series against the Celtics, were game 6. They had a chance to close it out, and he could not get it done there. And then game 7 in Boston, he completely no-showed from the opening tip. That, to me, is how I view Harden from here on out forever. So you're not going to convince me that playoff Harden is anything different. Yeah. So let's see. Try to see if there's another question I have for you. Well, I guess if you're sitting here right now, what would be your finals matchup?
Man, I think it's the Celtics versus whoever wins between the Clippers and the Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
I think that will be my finals matchup. Just because people really like the Thunder this year. Give me Thunder Celtics. I know that's a lot of people's matchup that they're going to be picking as Thunder Celtics. I mean, my only other matchup I would have would probably be Clippers Celtics.
Okay, Carmike has Lakers Boston. The league, I mean, Silver would sign up for that. All right, Gene's got a question here. Are the Bucks, Knicks, Pistons, Pacers really good teams? The East is Boston and Cleveland. The West is a bunch of weird situations, OKC and aging slapsticks.
I mean,
I guess we'll start with the first part of the question. Bucks, Knicks, Pistons, Pacers, are they actually good teams, or do they benefit from the East being what it is after Boston and Cleveland?
I think that very much implies, because if you look at a lot of their stats, because even though I mentioned like the Pacers are the top 4 in like net in all of the NBA since January 1st. It's also because, got got to play, a lot of lesser East teams. So, it helps, make you look a lot better in those different aspects. I do very much think the East is driven by Cleveland and Boston. And until Cleveland can really prove to me that they can make it somewhere far, I still think just ran by Boston right now. So, yeah, I think none of these teams really kind of have to prove it. If the Celtics can, upset, not the Celtics, but the Pistons, can upset the Knicks and, take 2 games on the Celtics, maybe they, shift a little bit of narratives, or let's say, the Cleveland game, the Pacers take 2 games, or the Bucks still come out, look dominant. That might shift some narrative, but I think right now this is, it's Celtics 1, Cavs 2, and then you can, fill in the dots, fill in the bubbles for whoever you want to put as the rest, because it's really hard to tell. None of them have really showed too much. I don't want to say promise, because these are the teams who have been in the playoffs the last consistent years, maybe outside of Detroit. But they haven't really showed anything outside of that, though. They can make it here, but cool. That's just the first part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, looking at those 4 teams, like, Pistons give me optimism. The Knicks, I agree kind of with Mo. I haven't really bought into the Knicks. I think push comes to shove, they're going to turn into, Jalen Brunson hero ball. And don't get me wrong, he's good in those situations, but not enough to the point where I think they're going to make some deep run. The Bucks are a team that I have been kind of pushing against all season, because I think the Bucks are in a weird spot where, and Mo just said it, you have Giannis, but you surrounded Giannis with the same group for the past couple of years now, and they just need like new blood in there. And maybe that you don't get that until maybe Doc's out of the way. And I think this is a playoff where Doc needs a good showing. And not only that, the Bucks need a good showing, because as they get bounced by the Pacers, we already know what the offseason is going to look like. There's going to be a lot of Giannis trade talk.
Yeah.
And we know Giannis will kind of fuel some of those flames with a podcast appearance here or there. And I think that's where there's a lot of pressure on Doc to kind of get something out of this team. And I don't know if maybe a first round win is enough, because they're going to have to show well against the Cavs as well. So I think the Bucks are kind of at a crossroads with this playoff series. And then the Pacers, I feel like I like some pieces on the Pacers, but when I watch them, there's just something missing. And I think you can kind of throw Turner into that group with like Jaren Jackson and some of these bigs that I kind of want them to be just a little bit more physical. And I think that would go a long way for them. Halliburton, I think there's questions about whether or not Halliburton can be your best player on a championship team. I don't think he can, but he could prove me wrong. And they get to another conference finals. I think they were helped a little last year with their run, but if he can back it up and do it a second year, maybe I start thinking a little bit differently about Halliburton.
I think you got to give a little bit of credit to Pascal Siakam as well, too. Like, I feel like he's just that type of guy. Like, whatever they're lacking that night, he just finds a way to go do it. He might not, fill up the rest of that board, but he's a good player. He's a good player for that Pacers team.
I mean, I'll admit it. Siakam's a guy I've never really been a Siakam guy. And I will say, I think he's been better in Indiana than he was in Toronto. That's also because I feel like the pieces around him in Indiana are better than Toronto.
Okay.
And in Toronto, he was the guy. He's another guy I would be like, if he's your best player, you aren't winning anything in today's league. So at least in Indiana, he's part of a group. You have Halliburton, you have him, you have Mathurin. You have some guys. Look, Obi Toppin is playing pretty well for them. So yes, there we go. Mo said it perfectly. Halliburton's nice. He's not a superstar. And look, that's another that could be a whole other episode about the whole superstar versus star. I do think superstar gets thrown around way too much in the NBA.
Agreed.
Look at me started on Siakam. Exactly. I'm there with you, Jury, on Siakam. Siakam and Kawhi was cooking in Toronto. Yeah, I mean that was 1 year. And look, Toronto was aided by some injuries for the Warriors. So we also have to say that. But even then, Siakam was the clear number 2 to Kawhi. So that's like the best version of Siakam. I mean, I kind of think if he's your 3, you're probably better off. That Toronto situation was probably a one-off.
Yeah, we haven't seen a team really like that, have we? Because that team,
They did win it all.
that team kind of just like put it together. That
Mhm.
one off season and won it, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
It felt like a weird year too for basketball.
right. Because you have the what if. Like, what if that corner 3 from Kawhi that bounces on the rim like 5 times doesn't go in? Like, how does their run change off of that?
No, just imagine if that.
Wasn't that a game 7?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So without that bounce, they don't win it all. So yeah, I almost forgot about that shot. That shot was just crazy. Bounced on the rim, then it just hung there for like the split second where you didn't know it was going to roll in or roll off the rim. I think Kevin Harlan was on the call for that too. So
Best day of history outside of winning that ring, I'd assume, for him.
What if Steph didn't fall apart in the home game 7?
True.
We don't live in what ifs, Kyle. I mean, what ifs in sports, it's synonymous. It's a great thing. It's a great world to live in, the what if world. But yeah, so look, we're well in the play-in. Haven't kept up with the score. I'm assuming Orlando is probably coasting at this point.
3.
All right, so, yeah. So I guess if the Hawks can put together a run going into the 4th, maybe the game becomes more interesting. But it does look like the Magic will move on at this point. So yeah, look, by next week we'll have playoffs set. Game 1s would have happened. I believe game 2s in some of the series would have happened as well. So we will be back to see where everything stands and obviously give kind of our updated look at the playoffs at that point. Next week we'll also do our mock draft, because here on the Ball we love mock draft season. We love draft season. And since it will be our episode right before the draft, we'll do our mock draft. And the way we do it, I'm a Patriots fan, so I control the Patriots. You got Dylan, who's a Seahawks fan. He'll be picking for the Seahawks. If Brett is able to do it, because I know he won't be on the show, but he would be for the Packers. And I don't know, may open it up as well. We'll see what we'll do next week, because I did find kind of a website that does kind of cater itself to like multiple people drafting at the same time. So we'll see what we do with that.
Okay.
May open up to some of you in the chat. I don't know. We'll see. But make sure you do come back next week for that. And look forward to that as well. See, Carmine, you said we don't live in what is, and we got what is flying all in the chat. So, yeah, I mean, before we get out of here, Dylan, you got anything you want to add?
Nope. I'm excited. I'm really excited for the NFL draft next week. I'm hoping my Hawks can get it done, but it's not looking too great for us right now. But overall, I mean, I'm excited for NBA playoff, excited for the draft. These are the fun times of the year. We still got, like I said, more NFL free agency. We're going to start getting to, like spring training, OTAs, get down to all the fun stuff coming soon. So, see a lot more of that happens, because the NFL offseason never stops.
It does not. Not at all. That's what makes it so good. So, yeah, like I said before, remember next week, sideline to sideline, draft, watch along, party. You gotta make sure that you tune into the channel for that. So if you're new here, make sure you hit that like button. Follow or subscribe depending on where you are watching, whether it is Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. And if you're on YouTube, notification bell. That way you'll know when the draft party is live. Because like I said, you'll get our instant reaction to each of the picks, and guarantee you'll want to see, especially for me, Patriots at 4. You want to know my reaction, so you got to tune in to see that. Okay, Mo, that's not nice. Oh wow, Hawks fan, that's the little thing. Yeah. But look, at least the Hawks have another opportunity. Even if they lose tonight, they still got another game to try to get that 8 seed and get Cleveland instead of Boston.
Yeah, I could be wrong and be a bandwagon fan. So at least I stay true to my teams.
Yeah.
Stick to teams.
Absolutely. I think that's the way to go. It makes it more, you get more pleasure out of seeing your team struggle and then finally breaking through. I mean, I know the joke would probably be, when will that happen for the Hawks? But, you know.
I mean, like, if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, I know it probably hurts.
Yeah. But I respect it. If you're a Jags fan, you've been through all the downtime. I'm sure the Mark Brunell years hit differently when they, you know, were a playoff team, but now you're stuck with Trevor Lawrence and whatever is left.
You had that Blake Bortles year. A lot of people argued you should have beat your Pats in that AFC championship.
Okay.
That was great.
But Blake Bortles didn't make that one winning play when he could, so.
Also true.
Quite.
Just still can't believe we had that AFC a conference championship week that literally had like Tom Brady, Blake Bortles, Nick Foles, and Case Keenum.
Yeah. See, look, this is where you get the divisional hate. Love to see it. Jags fan kick rocks with your overrated quarterback. That's the thing about NFL I do love. Like the divisional hate runs deep. And I love that. Because you know me, I'll never give the Jets credit for anything. Because I'm a Patriots fan. I could never do that. But like I said, make sure you guys hit the like button, follow and subscribe. Share it as well. Definitely love that. But yeah, make sure you do check out all the other shows here on Wire to Wire. Get your morning started with Coffee and Sports. Great show. You see Mo on there, who's in the chat. You'll see Carmike on there. You know, Brett or Gene. Like it's a good way to get your day started. And then Friday, I'll be back on here with Jory, who's in the chat for Passion and Precision. So make sure you check us out on there as well. Yeah, just check out everything that's here on the network. Guarantee you'll enjoy it. So we'll go ahead, get out of here. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. We will see you back here next week. Like I said, mock draft next week. You got to come for that because, you know, Dylan and I love this and we'll have a lot of fun with it. So, yeah, see you next week. All right, bye.